judges have not been exempt from the violence. Over 400 lawyers have been killed in the last decade. Human rights lawyers in particular continue to suffer assassinations, torture, forced disappearance and threats, and some are now being arrested on trumped-up charges in an effort to stop them pursuing their cases. Colombian human rights lawyers work in very isolating conditions, facing traumatic, overwhelming workloads. They often provide their services free of charge to victims living in poverty, and so they have very little funding. In response to this situation, in 2008, our Colombian partner organisation, ACADEUM, which is the Colombian Association of Human Rights Lawyers, sent out a plea for international support. As a result, over 50 lawyers from across the world participated in the first international caravan of lawyers. The Colombian lawyers noted significant improvements following the 2008 one-week mission, both in terms of their safety and the proper functioning of the legal system, as it has long been proven that international attention has a strong protective impact. Consequently, a second mission of 57 international lawyers went to Colombia in 2010, and the third trip is planned for August this year, which is our project. The project itself centres around a 7-day investigative mission to Colombia by 45 international lawyers. During the trip, these delegates will travel to the remote regions of Colombia, where the lawyers there work with the most affected community and are at the highest risk. They will meet with judges, state officials, the media, human rights NGOs and other key players, both to gather information and demonstrate publicly the attention of the international community. They will also be investigating specific cases of attacks against human rights lawyers that have not been properly investigated or prosecuted. After the trip, the delegates will then produce a high-quality report on their findings, which will be used for advocacy work across the world. Colombian human rights lawyers have very little money and are often supported by aid agencies. Although they desperately want the international delegation to visit, they do not have funds to cover the cost of the visit, including venue hire, transport costs and translation. Our organisation is seeking funds to ensure this mission goes ahead. We are a group of committed professional lawyers who give their time and resources voluntarily. I'm now going to pass over to one of our directors, Jacinta Jones, who is a human rights barrister who can tell you her perspective.
Thank you. When I went to Colombia in 2010, it was with a relatively vague understanding of just how bad things were for human rights defenders there. I didn't expect to be so affected by my experience that I would end up devoting as much time, energy and money to working for the Caravana as I now do, whether it be climbing mountains in the rain to even more daunting going into the dragon's den as I am today. So why? Well, the two things that really hooked me are firstly the lawyers themselves. I couldn't fail to be impressed by these bright, well-educated, ordinary, humble people. Underneath, they're all so deeply principled and dedicated that they do what the rest of us can only hope we would do in their situations, and that's their job, peacefully helping others even though they're risking their lives daily to do so. They're stigmatised, they're accused of fraud and of being terrorist sympathisers by the government. They're stalked, they're burgled, including by security services, they're threatened, they're imprisoned, and as you've heard, they're murdered at an alarming rate. Death threats to them and their families are very common. A recent example is that of Martha Giraldo, who's a human rights lawyer. On the 4th of January 2012, she received this text message. The families of the guerrillas are demobilising. On the contrary, you have two alternatives. Obey and respect the law, or you will lose those you must love, and we start with the smallest. She's pregnant, and the Inter-American Court ordered the Colombian government to adopt measures to protect her. It hasn't done it, and the Minister of the Interior is refusing to respond for requests to do so. And one particular conversation that I had with a lawyer stood out in my mind. Reynaldo Villalba is based in Bogota, and I asked him, why do you do what you do given the risks? And he said to me, if the government are threatening me, I can sleep at night. If I didn't do my job, my conscience would keep me awake. Other than their bravery, something else I noticed was how keen the lawyers were to have us there, and how helpful the previous delegation had been in protecting them. They gave many examples. Judges were allowing them to make applications that they hadn't previously, begrudgingly commenting that they were protected by the international community. There's a long way to go, but these are positive and important effects. And the second reason that I'm here is because international pressure of this type really helps. The Colombian government has been described as having a very slick PR machine, but the authorities were keen, desperate to impress us. And as lawyers, we were able to question and push for answers and get them to take the steps that need to be taken to provide us with the support that we need.